welcome to day 4 of the Coronacation. The day has dawned dreary and rainy, and it's the perfect kind of day to curl yourself into 1 or 2 blankets, open up your laptop, put on some chill music, and listen to some math. So, we're going to start first of all with Algebra 1 and Goal 4. I took care of a lot of the earlier topics in a prior video, and now we're going to start getting into the middle tier stuff. We had talked in one of my disastrously failed live streams about y equals mx plus b format, and that's kind of what I want to go into a little bit more detail. Just give me a second to put on some chill music, and then we're going to talk some math. All right, there's our chill music. We want to talk a little bit about slope-intercept form. Slope-intercept form has been up here staring at you for a while now, for a couple of the videos as I start getting you guys prepped for the middle part of the chapter. The big thing to keep in mind is that your m, let me zoom in, your m right here is your slope. Your b, the number that doesn't have a variable next to it, is your y-intercept. And the software, actually, assuming you do them in the right order, does a really good job of building you up to be comfortable with this particular formula. So the topics I'm going to be focusing on are these 3 that are highlighted in purple. We want to get you used to recognizing your slope and y-intercept at a glance. Then we're going to get you used to doing the algebra necessary to get your slope and y-intercept. And then finally, we're going to get you used to being able to make a y equals ms plus b, a slope-intercept format from basically low-key kind of everything. And as a added bonus, just as we get used to all of this, this topic is going to be taken care of while we're going through this. Let's see here, writing an equation and graphing given its slope and y-intercept. This one will also be able to be done when this is all said and done, but this particular topic, the one I've just highlighted, is honestly so easy that I don't even need to explain it. As always, if one of these topics gives you a particular difficulty, send me an email and I'll make a one-off topic tutorial in order to help you through that. But basically, with the skills I'm going to be giving you, that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 topics right in rapid succession. So let's get started. So there we go. First things first, the first topic, you can see it at the directions. Find the y-intercept and the slope of the line. They're not actually asking you to do any solving. They're just getting used to the fact that, purple's fine. They're getting you used to the fact that y equals mx plus b and identifying what number is the slope and what number is the y-intercept. That's what they're kind of low-key trying to train you to do. So when we're looking at this, we need to identify what's the slope, what's the y-intercept. So the slope is always based on the formula. The slope is always the number with the x. The y-intercept is always the number that does not have a variable. So when we're looking over here, what number has my variable? This here, which is -6. And my y-intercept, what is it? It's the number that's by itself, which is -8. Like, sincerely, there's not really much for me to say for this particular topic. It's just, what number is the x? That's your slope. What number is empty? That's your y-intercept. Having said that, though, for this topic, they do give you a trick question, which is what this second little problem is. When you're trying to figure out the slope and y-intercept, you can see there's no actual numbers here. Like, it's just, well, actually, no, there is a number, but there's no variable. How does this logic? Well, we know the basic. Oh, as I thwack my computer, we know the basics. This is a number without a variable. What is the number without a variable? That's your y-intercept. So -3/4 is your y-intercept. The question then is, what's the slope? Question mark, question mark, question mark. Except not really. If we think about this, I'm going to see if I can scroll over here. We're going to pretend for a hot second. Let me get in the right highlighter. If we're going to pretend for a hot second that your y-intercept is in the -3/4, that's about there. It is because it's y equals, it's every single coordinate that has y as -3/4. So you have -3/4, you have 1 -3/4, oh, that's -3/4, Miss Dubois, pay attention. So you have 0 -3/4, 1 -3/4, 2 -3/4, 3 -3/4, and so on and so forth. And we end up getting, and you can kind of see, a horizontal line. Well, gosh darn and golly gee, what's the slope of a horizontal line? I talked about that in one of my live streams. If it's 0 slope, then it's 0 problem, because then I can actually pretend to cross country and ski it. If for those of you who didn't watch my live streams, the anecdote comes from my high school math teacher, who gave me a lot of things, including the song for the quadratic formula. One of the things she talked about for slope is because there's two kinds of slope, and being able to sort of understand the difference between a undefined slope and a 0 slope. She said slope is like skiing. If it's a 0 slope, because I'm an old lady, I can cross country that. That's cross country skiing. 0 slope is 0 problem. No slope, meaning undefined slope, you're skiing off a cliff, and me as an old lady is going to say no ever loving way. And that's where the anecdote comes from. I mentioned about that in the live stream, but in case you were curious, that's where it came from. So that's getting us used to it. Then we're going to give one more. You see here now, the format is a little bit different. Find the slope and y-intercept of the line, which is the exact same instructions that they've been given, but now we're at a new topic because the format is a little bit different. Give me a second to drink my water. You'll notice that instead of having this in slope-intercept form, we actually now have this in standard form, and this is what I had talked about in a prior video with someone. I've been making so many videos, I've lost track. But ax plus by equals c. So that's what we want to get comfortable with for this new set of problems. So when I'm going through this, I simply have to go through the effort of getting y by itself. That's the whole point, is I am trying to change that 6x minus y into y equals. So how do we do that? Let's see here. Let me rewrite this. -6x minus y equals 5. At a glance, I have a choice. I can either move my y or I can move my x. Since I don't like the y being negative, what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to add y to both sides. Not everyone can do this at a glance. It takes a little effort and a little bit of finessing, but it's a favorite of mine, especially when I'm not overly interested in trying to handle a negative number. Some kids I know are not fans of that. So, having said that, add it out, and what am I left with? -6x equals y plus 5. And you can actually, I'll get rid of that so that doesn't, there we go. I have more room. And if you'll notice, the y is now positive. I just need to get it by itself. If I need to get y by itself, what's the number that I need to move? Over here, it's going to be the 5. So now I'm going to minus 5 over here, and I'm going to minus 5 over here. And what am I left with? Well, 6x and 5 are not like terms. Absolutely not. We have to keep them separate. So it's -6x minus 5 equals y. Look, I have everything I need because it's in y equals mx plus b format. It looks a little backwards, but we're still okay. So, in effect, what's our slope? Well, what's the number next to our x? -6. Awesome. All right, what is our y-intercept? Well, what's the number by itself? -5. Ta-da! And it was done in what? Two steps? That's not bad. Let's take a different problem. So 12x plus 4y equals 5. I'll do this all here so I give myself a little bit more room. So we have -12x minus 4y equals 5. Again, the whole point is that we need to do the algebra necessary to get y by itself. That's the win state. So if I'm basically looking at every number that isn't a y and figuring out how to move it. So I got to look at that -4. I'll eventually be moving it. Hold that thought. And it's the 12x that I need to be moving. And that's the one that's a little bit more immediate because that's a little bit easier to do. All I'm doing is adding my 12x. Once I do that out, I am left with -4y equals 12x plus 5. Now that's looking pretty good. The y is at least now on its own. It doesn't have an x or, well, who wouldn't want an x? But it doesn't have an x and it doesn't have a 5, but then I have that pesky 4 that I need to get rid of. So what operation is this? Well, it's multiplication. So how do you undo multiplication? You divide by 4. So what's going to end up happening is I'm going to divide by negative 4. I'm going to divide by negative 4. And then I'm going to divide by negative 4. Very, very important. You did get a little bit of training in this in earlier chapters, but if you need the refresher, when you are dividing, you are in fact dividing the entire equation. Every single number is being divided by that negative 4. So what are we left with? Y equals, what is 12 divided by negative 4? Negative 3. What is 5 divided by negative 4? Well, that doesn't parse. I can't figure out how that divides evenly. So we leave it as negative 5 over 4. And they did that deliberately because they're trying to trick you. For some students, they always think that, oh, miss, the fraction is the slope because rise over run, right? No, this is the proof of that. So what is our slope? It's the number next to the x, not the fraction, the number next to the x, which in this case is negative 3. And what is our y-intercept? That is the number that is completely by itself without a variable, negative 5/4. And there's going to be our answer. We'll go through one more example, but I'm feeling pretty confident that we've covered this pretty thoroughly. So let's give ourselves some space for this and take a sip of water. Negative 5x minus 4y equals negative 20. Let's see here. So the first thing we want to do, again, it's the y that we're trying to isolate, right? So we need to move everything else. So the first thing we're going to move, the first thing we're going to move is our 5x. Take our 5x, add it to one side, add it to the other. What are we left with? Negative 4y again. We have the 5x and the 20. All right, so far so good. And we're starting to get comfortable with this. So we divide by negative 4, divide by negative 4, divide by negative 4. And what are we left with? Y equals 5 divided by 4. We can't do that, so negative 5 over 4x. Now that one does make sense. And then what is 20 divided by 4? 20 divided by 4 is 5, and then it's a negative divided by a negative, so it'll be plus 5. There is our answer. So far, so good. Oh, no, wait, no, that's not our answer because that's not what it's asking for. Silly Ms. Dubois. It's asking for the slope and the y-intercept. So what's our slope? Our slope is the number next to the x, which is the negative 5 over 4. What is our y-intercept? That is the number by itself, which in this case is positive 5. Now we're done. That's our answers. And again, because I know somebody's going to forget this somewhere and they're going to start cursing Ms. Dubois, check to see the labeling because they might not tell you the slope and y-intercept. They might give you y-intercept first and then slope, so be very, very careful. It's easier when it's more open-ended like this because I just can write out the labels myself, but the computer is very picky and it tends to be mean to you. So any one of these, we can actually go through the effort of graphing, right? So for example, if I have that 5/4 x plus 5, do I give enough space? No, I don't. Okay, never mind. I'll talk about it later. Actually, let's try this one. So let me get my highlighter out, do some erasing. Computer. All right, so we have negative 8 minus 6x. So let's actually do that out. So our y-intercept is negative 8. So we go down 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. There's my point. And what's my slope? My slope is negative 6. Okay, I did not give myself enough space on the graph. Negative 6 means we're going to go down 6 over 1. The reverse of that is we can go backwards 1 and then up 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And there is my line, which I did very badly. Try that again. Yeah, a little bit better. That's what I get for doing this in Photoshop. All right. And then there is another line that we can do. I can't really do slope of negative 6 and negative 5. Do I have enough for that one? No, I don't. How about, no? All right. We'll see what this one is, and then I can show you how to do it. The next topic that I want to talk about is this one. Where is it? Finding the slope and y-intercept. There it is. Writing an equation in slope-intercept form given a slope and a point. That's what this topic is. They give you the slope, they give you the point. So they've done half the work for you by finding the slope. So now we just got to go through the effort of getting our y equals mx plus b. And we take a minute and think about what that actually means. We means y equals mx plus b. That part makes sense. That means it's y equals 3/2 x plus something. That's what we got to figure out. That's the effort we're going to go through. And that's where them giving us a random point that exists on this line starts to become a boon for us. Because we do actually, in fact, have a y. It's 2. We do have the slope, 3/2. And then they did give us an x, the 10. That's interesting. So the only thing that we don't have is the b. And this is the love part of the love-hate relationship with the software. Because they give you the slope and they give you an x, the software always makes a point of making sure this divides evenly. All right? So 10 divided by 2 is 5. 5 times 3 is 15. So what that means is that 2 equals 15 plus b. If you're not comfortable with doing that kind of fraction math in your head, I know that I'm an oddball in that particular arena. You can do this on the calculator. If it's a phone calculator, I don't think there's a fraction button, but for most calculators, especially ones made more recently, if you have a scientific or a graphing calculator, there is in fact a fraction button. So keep an eye out for that. From there, we now need to actually solve the darn thing because we don't have a b equals. So we're going to minus 15, and then we're going to minus 15, and what are we left with? B equals, what is 2 minus 15? Negative 13. All right, so this is now no longer blank. This is going to be minus 13. There you go. There's your answer. So let's do this again. So we're looking for y equals mx plus b. And what do we know? We know that y equals negative 3x plus something. Oh, I hope none of y'all are hearing my stomach rumble. So what do we have? We have a y, that's 4. We have a slope, which is negative 3. We have an x, which is 5. And then it's plus b. That's what we're trying to solve. So what is y? Sure, it's 4 equals, what is negative 3 times 5? That's negative 15 plus b. So what does that mean? We're going to add 15 and then add 15. What do we get as an answer? B equals 19. So our number is over here going to be the positive 19. Y equals negative 3x plus 19. And we're starting to notice that it's kind of repetitive. This seems to be pretty well chill. You know, you're doing the same steps over and over. And because it becomes so rhythmic, it becomes less difficult and less scary. One last one and then we'll wrap up this video. Y equals mx plus b. That's what we're trying to shoot for. So what do we actually have? We have y equals negative 3/4. They gave us a fraction one again, plus something. That's what we're trying to look for. So did they give us a y? Yes. Did they give us a slope? Yes. Did they give us an x? Yes. Did they give us a b? No. So that's what we're trying to solve. Why is there an extra tab there? Okay, so 9 equals 8 divided by 4 is 2. 2 times 3 is negative 6 plus, where's my letter? B. There we go. That makes a lot more sense. And now we're going to plus 6 plus 6. And what are we left with? 15 equals B. So this will be negative 3/4 x plus 15. So what did we go over? What did we review? We talked about most of these topics, finding the slope and y-intercept in y equals mx plus b, that was pitiful to the point where I barely needed to explain it. We have in the form of ax plus by equals c. That's where we do a little bit of algebra in order to get y by itself. Then once y is by itself, we have it in the slope-intercept form and we can actually identify the numbers. And then the next thing we did is given a slope and a point, which is what this stuff was over here, which again is very, very rhythmic. What we can do now that these two topics are under our belt, since they tell you a slope and y-intercept, you can graph that on your own. And if they tell you the slope and y-intercept, you can write an equation. So that's 5 equations for goal 4 of Algebra 1. Stay safe, stay healthy, stay warm, since I'm buried in like 3 blankets right now, and we'll see you in the next one.